ACC101 students, in this recording, we are going to look at the general journal. More specifically, in this video, we're going to look at the chapter 4 homework number 3. Okay, for this problem, we are looking at Single Moon, and he opened a business called the Bike Doctor, and he had the following transactions during the month of October of the current year. And so instead of scrolling up and down, I went ahead and put these all on one slide so we can see everything together. But you may have to scroll just a little bit in your homework assignment. So in general journals, the debit will always be listed first and the credit will always be listed second. So this is where it is helpful to have your umbrella with you. If you guys remember in chapter 3, I gave you all the PDF and the image of the umbrella. So make sure you're using that. And we're also going to use the transaction analysis for every single transaction. So let's start with the first one. Moon invested cash in the business in the amount of $18,000. Now remember, your numbers are going to be different, but it's the same accounts. So when I'm looking at the first transaction, he invested cash, all right? So there was an increase in cash. My cash is an asset, which increases on the debit side. So that one would go listed first. And the other account that's affected is his capital. So you do have to type in Single Moon, comma, capital. If you miss something, if you spell something incorrectly, it will turn red. So just make sure that you pay attention to spelling and don't forget that comma in there. And then capital increases on the credit side. So that account gets listed second, right? You won't put anything for the post reference in this chapter. We will start seeing those post reference columns filled in chapter 5 and 6. But for right now, we're just focused on the date, the account title, and then the debit and the credit. So for all of these transactions for this problem, there are 2 accounts affected. Now the chapter shows us that we can have a compound entry, which is 1 debit, 2 credits, or 2 debits and 1 credit. But in this homework problem, you are just going to have 1 debit, 1 credit. Debit goes first, credit goes second. Okay, so in the second transaction for October 2nd, we have paid shop rental for the month in the amount of $500. So my rent is an expense. Expenses increase on the debit side, so that one goes first. My cash decreases on the credit side, so that one gets listed second. In October 3rd, he purchased bicycle parts on account for $3,000. Okay, so bicycle parts are an asset because he is a bike repair shop. So bicycle parts are an asset. They increase on the debit, so those are going to get listed first. He didn't pay cash for these. He put them on account, so that's a credit. He is liable, that's a liability. He's liable for that money to pay it in the future. So my accounts payables increased by $3,000, right? On October 5th, he purchased office supplies on account for $400. So we have office supplies are an asset and they increase on the debit. So that goes first. And he purchased them on account. So he is liable for that bill in the future. So I know that accounts payable is a liability and that increases on the credit side. So you guys can see every single transaction. What are the 2 accounts that are affected? Which one has a debit and which one has a credit? And then you go, okay, debits are listed first, credits are listed second. Okay, so just keep that in mind as you go through these. There are 2 pages to this general journal, so just keep an eye on that. You can use your check my work button, and just there's a number at the top, 391 out of 391 is what mine says, so you'll start to see that number go up. If you list them backwards, it'll turn them red, it'll turn the boxes red, so just keep an eye out for that. So very quickly, I wanted to show you guys page 2 of this general journal. So everything from October 14th and all the way to the 29th, all of those transactions are going to go on page 2. All right, so we start with Wage expense. So let's see, he paid part-time employees $310. So my wage expense increases on the debit side and my cash decreases on the credit side. Okay, so same concept. You're going to have two accounts for every single transaction. Debits first, credit second.